it may have happened with quite a few of you, definitely has happened with me and a bunch of my friends. When we were studying engineering and we would sit in the corner of our hostel rooms, we would often think that we are technical mavericks, we have great mechanical understanding of things, and we would build our own products, launch our own companies and change the world. But when the ground realities hit you and you go your separate ways, those dreams remain exactly that, dreams. But there are still a lot of people who try and make those dreams happen. And that has exactly been the case with a particular set of guys. These guys, they left their cushy jobs in the US, they decided that they want to do something of meaning, something really nice and something that is going to revolutionize the industry. And that's when they decided to launch a motorcycling company. That company is called Ultraviolette, and this is the product that is the first effort of the collective exercises. This is the F77. So what is the F77? What does this represent? Well, it represents work of over 7-8 years, because the company essentially started its innings way back in 2016. That's when the first blueprints of the motorcycle were laid out, and then the development started. They had a few prototypes running in as well. And then of course, COVID hit and everything came to a grinding halt, at least from a market launch perspective. But at the same time, Ultraviolette did not stop there, because they thought that they would utilize this time, or rather downtime because of COVID, into doing something else, into developing the bike more and more. And that's when they got tinkering with the motorcycle. They changed the entire architecture as well to a great extent. And that's why you don't see any opening flap around here. And the guys at Ultraviolette, they tell me that the illumination or the headlamp unit, that has been developed in conjunction with FIAM. So they've had a lot of man hours, a lot of R&D happening for the right kind of beam throw and spread and all sort of things when it comes to illumination. So that is also almost like bespoke development for this product. And then of course, as you go along, you notice one very, very critical thing. That is, there are no exposed bolt heads or screws or anything of that sort on the bodywork. It's all hidden in a very nice way. And this is what gives the bike its sensuality in a way. Very nice and flowing design. Of course, you have these knee recesses, which kind of look like they belong in a bigger bike. And the whole sense that the F77 gives you is also of being a big bike. But the moment you see it in flesh, that's not the case. And it's all down to the packaging. The front end is very, very tight. You have the entire battery pack with the control modules and everything sitting on top of it. And then the swing arm is extremely, extremely short, and it just kind of merges into the chassis right in the middle. So the entire balance that you have in terms of the design execution, also in terms of engineering execution, is absolutely wonderful. And it has a weight balance of 52 at the front and 48 at the rear. And two things that I absolutely love. One is the way they have covered the whole front suspension, which is essentially an upside down fork with these nice covers. Now the suspension itself is supplied by Gabriel, and very interesting thing again, Gabriel has never done a cartridge type front suspension or upside down fork, and this is the first time that they've done it to basically serve the F77. So Ultraviolette worked very closely with Gabriel to develop that. And the other bit is this, these winglets, they not only have a great form, they look good, but they also have function. Now you have air coming in from the front and feeding through here, but you also have air getting fed through here. And all that essentially helps in keeping the temperatures in check when it comes to the battery. Very, very nice design, but also something that essentially is designed for a purpose. Now this plastic bit over here, this is not only plastic, it essentially has a metal ring, and this plastic kind of encases it. It is mounted onto a support member, a nice metal frame that runs around the battery pack to protect it in case of crashes. And this metal insert over here is also there for protection, because if you, God forbid, fall, that is what is going to absorb the most amount of energy. So it's all well and good when it comes to the cycle parts and all the mechanical bits. We've also actually seen the complete naked frame of the motorcycle, and that will really show you the kind of attention to detail that has gone into some of the things. But there are still some issues, there are still some niggles. One of those things is essentially about the fit and finish. Now, stuff like this, for example, these are very flimsy things, and you don't really want this in a bike that retails at about 4 lakh rupees. And yeah, I think there are some build quality issues, some inconsistencies here and there. In fact, one of the things that we noticed was inconsistent fit and finish issues over here on the suspension covers. But that is not to say that this bike is not done properly. Things can definitely improve. Seats, for example, yes, they are okay. They're not really the best out there, but just adding a little bit more cushion is going to really change the way you experience the bike when you ride it. But apart from these small niggling issues, fit and finish issues here and there, this seems to be a job well done. Now the F77 is of course an all-electric motorcycle, so the biggest talking point is the battery, which is the biggest in the EV two-wheeler space in India. This is a 10.3 kilowatt hour system, makes about 29 kilowatt or 3940 horsepower and 96 Newton meters of peak torque, which makes it do a top speed of about 147 kilometers per hour. And it also, very crucially, gives it a range in excess of 300 kilometers. Realistically, you should get anywhere between 220 to 250 or thereabouts, which is also plenty good, especially factoring in the kind of performance that this bike offers, which at 96 Newton meters, and I just keep coming back to the torque because that is what really matters over here. The 40 horsepower figure is of course very good to know and kind of feel when you full throttle, but it's crucially the torque figure of 96 Newton meters that is really going to get you going, and that's what electric motors are all about, because you get full torque supply right from the word go. But the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and this motorcycle or the execution of this concept would not really bear any fruit if it is not going to deliver on the riding experience. And that's where it almost shines very bright. The first thing that I noticed was the very sharp steering, because the rake itself is very, very sharp. It's about 23.5 degrees. So when you look at it, you almost are like, oh my God, this front end has just ended. But what it affords you is very, very nimble handling, great maneuverability. And it's to the extent that when we were shooting and we were tracking with a camera car in the front, of course, we could not have gone very, very fast. So we could not lean into the corners. But even around the tighter bends, we really did not have any problem. I was almost able to turn the handlebar on intuition, and the bike just changed direction without any problem at all. At the same time, because the footprint is not all that great, it's not a very long bike, it by default has a very nimble personality. It's great to handle, and the very fact that the steering itself is very sharp, coupled to great tires, which by the way MRF has developed specifically for this bike, completely new tread pattern, great new compound as well, and just suits the nature of the bike very, very well. The ABS calibration is also pretty sound. There are no unnecessary intrusions that you feel when you apply the brake lever. All the calibrations, all the electricals are very sorted. So in that department, from the handling perspective, this bike has genuinely scored massive points. Another very peculiar thing that I found with the F77 was the springing on the pegs, specifically on the left, because on the right you have the brake lever, so you will be doing a lot of action and you will be controlling the brakes. So the right hand side is still kind of okay because you're moving out anyway quite a bit. But that, especially when you're leaning towards the right or when you're getting into right flowy corners, it unloads your left leg because the springing is very soft on the pegs. So there were moments with me when I was leaning in and the left just unloaded because of the springing on the pegs being too soft, and a couple of very hairy moments as well. But of course, the balance again is so nice that you just kind of bring it back in check. But that is something that Ultraviolette will have to look into. Just stiffen it up a little bit, not too much, because then it's going to be very, very hard to operate. But right now the springing is just too soft and you can really slip your shoes on it. Now the final bits are on the braking and the power delivery. Now brakes, big talking point, because there is great amount of progression, there is great amount of feel and also bite. But these are regen brakes. There are 3 levels to regen as well. Honestly, I could not really feel the difference all that much, and especially when you are going in the ballistic mode on a track like this, dialing in maximum regen really did not make a lot of difference. And Ultraviolette claims that with the regen, the recuperation is going to be to the tune of about 7 to 10%. So 7 to 10% of energy storage back into the battery. You also can switch from single channel to dual channel ABS. I've been largely riding in dual channel mode, so both the front and the rear, they have the ABS support. You can dial it off at the rear and just have the ABS support at the front. So that's a good thing. You can switch depending on what exactly are the conditions that you're riding in or what kind of biases you like. Now we'll come to the power delivery, and that's very crucial because there are 3 modes. Glide, the most tame or the silliest one when it comes to power delivery, because really not a lot is going to excite you in this. The way how throttle responds is not something that is very intuitive. I think you're going to be very, very sorted if you ride this bike in the combat mode, which is the middle one. That has the perfect balance of not just acceleration and maneuverability and also the way the power is spread all through your application, but also how you can manage it, especially without the brakes. Even if you're leaning in, just getting off the throttle a little bit and modulating it, that is going to put you in a very good space because you know how linear the progression is going to be or how seamless the build-up of speed is going to be. When you go into the ballistic mode, of course, things get a little hot. It's all about full massive attack acceleration. So yeah, that I think you should save for very purpose-oriented applications, specifically if you're on a track and stuff like that. But if you find some open stretches of road, go for it. It is going to give you a massive smile on your face. So, the Ultraviolette F77. This is going to be a great paradigm shift for the entire electric two-wheeler community. And not just because it looks absolutely smashing good, but mainly because of the engineering prowess that it brings to the table. The battery is the biggest in the country, completely developed in-house, from the cycle parts to the electronics, and everything that you see on the bike is just a coming together of complete in-house development. And that just goes to show the engineering prowess that hides in these pockets of India. And if the intent is right, there is no doubt that you can produce a fantastic product. And this serving as the base is just a great, great step, because it's only upwards that you can go from here. So, as a first product by Ultraviolette, a fantastic job done. There are some rough edges, there are some niggling issues, but nothing that cannot be ironed out as they progress further.